You're listening to the Black Eagles podcast with Sinan and Kaan.
Ahmet Dursun Sergen aldı. Sergen Bülent yan yana. Sergen Bülent. Sergen. Yanında Tümer var. Tümer'e doğru atışını kaybetti. Tümer topu aldı. Sergen aldı. Gol! Gol! Gol! Sergen attı. Sergen attı. Şampiyonluk geldi. Sergen attı. Şampiyonluk geldi.
İbrahim'in pası. Cuma. Şimdi Ahmet. İkinci gole gidiyor Beşiktaş. Ahmet.
Welcome back, everybody! Beşiktaş International's The Black Eagles podcast is coming back at you with episode 92. My gosh, we've been doing this a long time. I am, of course, your host, Sinan Schwarting, live from New York City. And of course, today I have another guest co-host with me. And the original one at that. Folks, put your hands together. It's Kaan. He's back with us from Belgium. How you doing, sir?
I was here last week.
Well, 2 weeks in a row. How good did you get? Fantastic. But no, yeah, I think this new Friday routine should be good in this regard.
I nearly forgot. Kim reminded me of it. I think. Did she? Yeah, I think she did.
Well, it was right on time. I was just like hunkering down, having gotten my work done for the day. I was going to text you, and you texted me. So here we are. The stars align. And what a week, actually. This is a good episode. We've had so little cause for positivity of late. And here we are. Beşiktaş hosted Galatasaray at the Vodafone Park. We've sort of given up on the old format here, so I don't think we need to spend too much time dilly-dallying as far as we all know what happened. Beşiktaş won 1-0. What I will do, just to sort of get the conversation going, is like let's transport ourselves to the beginning of the match, how we felt about things going into it. The lineup didn't throw out much in the way of surprises. We had Loris Karius in the goal, Domagoj Vida, Enzo Rocco. Perhaps there was a little surprise there. Enzo Rocco got himself a start. Globosho also started on the left side with John Erkin playing in the left wing position. Of course, Jermaine Lens would play El Neni and Hutchinson, the two defensive midfielders there again. I skipped Gökhan Gönül. Diaby would play behind the striker or alongside the striker, depending on how you see it. And of course, Umut Nair would play and impact the match, but we'll talk about that in a sec. What did you think about that, Kaan?
Yeah, I was glad to see Umut get rewarded for his good showing, good substitution appearance against Braga. Güven starting on the bench, it's always good in my book. In general, I think the biggest surprise was maybe Laiç not playing. But the main thing I was happy about is that Avcı was finally shifting his lineup, where finally he put someone behind the striker. That's something he wasn't doing before. We were playing a flat 4-3-3 with a left-sided central midfielder and a right-sided central midfielder. This time he really did put someone in behind the striker, and I really felt that immediately had a positive impact. I think after, 30 seconds or so, Diaby played it through to Umut on the wing, through the center, and Umut had a one-on-one opportunity with the goalkeeper already, with Muslera. I thought it was pretty positive.
A good start, yeah. I mean, it was a pretty intense match, of course, but obviously, I think going into any derby, you can kind of throw away all your preconceived notions of what are going on. It's in a way, I think it's a chance to kind of start with a blank slate again, at least for one match, and obviously, in the case of one where you win, you hope you can maybe build on it a little and put a few performances like this together, but I mean, yeah, it's like this squad had a facelift, right? I mean, it was a completely different outlook from what we'd been seeing.
Yeah, I think it was kind of a typical derby match where you kind of expect a team that's on the ropes to
Emerge.
get beaten is what the normal consensus would be. Our dear friend Aurelien would be crying beforehand.
He was, I believe.
Are going to rape us. They're going to rape us because he loves
said
to
it.
use that word.
That language.
But always when you say something like that, the opposite is gonna happen. But
Especially when it's our good friend Aurelien, of course.
this reminds me of the mid 2000s when Fenerbahce under Christoph Daum, those 2 seasons that they won back-to-back titles, and that second season and that third season, especially in the third season, they didn't win the title, but in that second and third season, they were the favorites. It's especially in the second season, they were like a dominant team. Nobody could really rival them. Trabzonspor did okayish, but Fenerbahce were really dominant that second season. And it was this period in Turkish football where they were going into every match as the clear favorites, and this was also a dark period in Beşiktaş history, coming off of the 2003-2004 season, where, for those of you old enough to remember, the whole Samsunspor match with Cem Papila kicking off a very negative spiral, the club spiraling out of control, basically. But in that period, we won quite a few Fenerbahce derbies, especially because we were always going into those games where we were definitely seen as the underdogs. That historical 3-4 win in Kadıköy happened in that time period. And
was that
somehow,
with like Poloshko?
No, that was the one with Koray scoring in Koray scoring in the added time in the 90+4 minute, I think it was.
Okay.
Scoring from the edge of the area after Cordoba had gotten sent off and Panko was playing in goal.
Cordoba. So we're in the 90s. Okay.
No,
Sorry. My gosh, the 2000s. There's a decade in there that I often just remove from my memory, perhaps. I don't.
That's 2005. That was the second.
Yeah, the 2000s.
Second half of the 2004-2005 season.
You reached that. It's actually sad, Kaan. You just reminded me that I've reached that age where the 90s and the 2000s have become this congealed thing. That was like, oh darn it. Okay, yes, right.
Was,
the next decade.
That was the season. The season we started under Vicente Del Bosque. We got John Caro and Juan Fran, and we had all these high hopes. And it was a terrible season, but somehow we still managed to beat Fenerbahce in both games. And that's also I think it is the last time we won in Kadıköy, if I'm not mistaken. So that's been a while.
And of course, the lasting legacy of the Del Bosque era was the legal troubles in getting him his salary that he was that was unfortunate. But it really was at the time. I think people will forget what a coup it was to get a manager of that kind of profile for our club.
Yeah, he was coming off of winning the Champions League with Real Madrid just 2 years earlier, I believe.
Yeah, and then he'd go on to win the Euro Cup with Spain. So.
Oh yeah, he went on and had a really good career. But first Aragones was in there, the former Fenerbahce coach. He was in there. I think he won the Euros with Spain, and then he left there. Anyway, but what I'm trying to say here is that usually going into these types of derbies where you have one team that's really suffering, really struggling, they almost never lose. Remember last season, Fenerbahce didn't lose a single derby, if I'm not mistaken. They drew us twice.
Yeah. That was so frustrating. That was, remember, we had that 3-0 lead.
Yeah.
I'll never forget. That was absolutely the major low light for last season for me. And I feel like that's where we lost. Exactly. Yeah. That, and we didn't just lose it because we lost 2 points in that big match. It was, I think it had a knock-on effect. That was such a demoralizer because we had it. It was such a high to such a low. You know what I mean? It was a crash, is what it was.
Yeah.
But anyway, focusing again on this match, let's talk about it. We saw a new side for this particular Beşiktaş squad, and I mean, look, whether or not we sustain play, I'd like to present an outlook for you, Kaan, and for the listeners. I'm going to try to paint a picture with my words here. Now imagine a sandy landscape two suns rising above the horizon. A new hope has arisen. Look, man, Beşiktaş is... Can we say that Beşiktaş is theoretically back, at least for a week, right? Like, this could be the springboard. Beşiktaş right now is in 8th place.
Don't do
12
it.
points.
Sinan, don't do it.
6 points out of first place.
In less than 24 hours, we will be in the aftermath of the Antalya game. So don't do it.
No, don't do that. Don't do it.
Don't jinx. No.
I know. Look, all I mean to say is that this is, at least theoretically, the moment to springboard for Abdullah Avci if he has any desire to keep his post. This is his moment, right? He's given himself that little. He's opened up a portal for himself to jump through, and it's just, can he do it? Can he make the leap? And this is his chance, really.
Yeah,
Antalyaspor, we're coming into a match against Antalyaspor, who are in 13th place. On 11 points, though. So they're literally just
lost
1
their
point
last
behind.
home game 6-0 against Derbili.
Yeah, which could be good or bad, right? They'll either come back real hungry to prove something, or they're just completely demoralized and crushed. I would actually expect the latter, honestly. 6-0, that's where it starts to feel like, oh man, we have to make some major changes. Coaches, players,
Yeah,
everyone's
yeah.
probably unsettled now. Like that, I don't know.
But I think more importantly, it's we're gonna see whether it's just one of those seasons for Beşiktaş where they're having an absolute dog shit season, but they can have a little moment here and there, like for example this win against Galatasaray. But then going from a high immediately back to a low,
which would be fitting.
Which is the most likely scenario right now, I think.
Yeah, even
however,
if not
I think
necessarily this week, at least probably like in the coming weeks, we can probably agree.
Well, we have a relatively easy schedule coming up. But,
Yeah,
you know,
I highlighted that last week that this is the window for him to get his ish together.
yeah. So we just had Galatasaray and we won, of course, and then we have Antalyaspor tomorrow. We have Braga in midweek, which will be tough, but then we have Denizlispor at
Newly
home.
promoted in Denizlispor, and then Konya on the road.
Then Konya away, that's tough. Then we have Slovan Bratislava at home. Midweek again, so hopefully we can salvage
whatever.
some European points. Then we have Kayserispor at home. They
and
just
then
changed-
Kasim Pasha. So like,
And then Kasim Pasha, then we have Wolves again, then we have
Yeni
Yeni
Malatya.
Malatya at home, and then we're away at Fenerbahce. So
until Fener, we're kind of in this, this
We're in a-
theoretical revitalization window, right? So
we're in a period, we're coming up to a period now where we can hopefully gather some morale, get some wins, get some points in, and B, recuperate some injured players and hopefully nurture them and make sure that they don't get injured again and hopefully don't lose any players anymore to injuries. And if we can go into that Fenerbahce game in a couple of weeks' time and 2 months or whatever it is with morale and with a full healthy squad, then we have a decent opportunity. I think I think there isn't a single team in the league that we cannot beat on our day with a full team available. I think honestly we've probably all figured that with all the injuries we had, all the missing players we had against Galatasaray, that it would be near impossible for us to get a win, despite the fact that they were in poor form, something we highlighted last week too, that Galatasaray were almost in as bad as a situation as we were. Not as bad, but almost. But with our injuries, that it would be near impossible to win, but yet we managed to do it. So maybe, but it's the Antalya game is gonna be important to see whether this is gonna be just.
it's a bellwether match, right? We'll know what way the wind is blowing. But so
It's the first big time I think this season where we can talk of a potential turnaround for how bad things have been, and maybe there's finally a moment now. The Galatasaray match is the perfect stepping stone for us to go forward, to have a better season, to salvage a little bit of glimmer of hope.
right,
for the
some
rest of the
positive
season.
from all this negative. But before we go back into the match, I quickly want to put a place marker on that thought. One of those thoughts you just had, as far as coming back from injuries and all of that. Who is going to be available for Beşiktaş in this Antalya match? Who's going to be back? So Burak, right? I heard Burak is back. Right?
Burak is included in the squad, but Nkudu still isn't. So
yeah, that's unfortunate. He's been
unfortunate.
a big motor for us in our darker moments. But I mean, hopefully, maybe we can build on. Lebosho has been really solid in a few weeks. So, I mean, all right. That's good.
Caner is suspended. He got a yellow card against Galatasaray, so he will be suspended for this match. So that means Pedro Lebosho will start once again at left back. And it also means that Avcı will be forced to use someone else as the left winger. And despite the fact that Caner did end up getting the assist to Umut Nayır's goal, which obviously got us the win against Galatasaray, I think that's a positive thing because I really don't like Caner at left wing. I've had this discussion multiple times over the past couple of years where people always think they have this brilliant idea of,
what if we play Caner on the wing?
What if we play Caner on the wing because he's such a good crosser and he's so much better in attack than he is in defense? But what these people don't realize is that the reason he is so good in attack is because as a left back he is afforded more space, more room, less pressure on the ball from the opposition fullback. And you also see it here when he got his assist. When did that happen? At a moment where Adem Laiç just came on the pitch, found a pocket of space on the left with a very well timed pass, and it was by no means a masterclass pass, but it was the perfect pass, a simple pass, but it afforded Caner time and space to get the cross in. And that's what Caner, when you're playing, for example, let's say you're playing against Antalyaspor, or you're playing against Sivasspor, you're playing against Konyaspor, teams that are going to be well organized, that are going to try to shut you down, that are going to not give away a lot of space in behind the defense, then a player like Caner isn't very effective as a winger because he isn't going to get past his man easily. He isn't going to be able to create space for himself easily to get in those dangerous crosses because he isn't a 32-year-old Ricardo Quaresma who could create space for himself.
I was going to say, he's a bit of a Quaresma now, right? Like, he has one brilliant cross when he does play, and that could be as a back or on the wing. But he also typically has about like 10 that are, okay to not so good. You know what I mean? He has a lot of opportunities to cross because that's sort of, he's looking for that. So that's maybe an attribute of his to some extent.
But have you ever noticed, Sinan, for example, let's say that we're having a counter-attacking opportunity and we're going down the right wing and Caner is playing on the left. Caner doesn't make good offensive runs.
Ever.
He doesn't help.
He sits back. He just wants to cross. You know what I mean? Like that.
Yeah. He doesn't have those instincts. So as a left winger, he is very ineffective, in my opinion, when it comes to those aspects of the game, which are important, especially if we're going to play teams that are going to be tough to dislodge. And then you have to make maximum use out of the spaces you're afforded. And a player like...
Don't fail to mention also, especially when you're playing with a guy like Umut Nayır as your main option up front as well. Like, you definitely need some support from the wings as far as getting attack. That's definitely been a great strength of Nkudu, and why I think a lot of people have been very fond of his is he's shown a willingness to go forward that people need.
The thing with Nkudu is that his end product is lacking. He doesn't really have a very good cross, or at least we haven't seen that really of him. He doesn't seem... He's not the most intelligent player in attack. I don't know how else I should frame that. I don't mean that as an insulting thing, but one thing with Nkudu is he's incredibly fast, and he creates a lot of problems for the opposition, whether he's having a good game or not. His speed is always going to cause problems. We saw it against Alanyaspor where he won us the penalty because he's a handful because of that speed and because of that unpredictability and explosiveness. He's not constantly trying to cut in and try and fire a shot like a Ryan Babel. He's not very predictable.
Yeah, and in that regard, speaking to the kind of like lack of intelligence you were saying earlier, what it is, I think, is he's the kind of guy who keeps his head down. And so he'll go into a play with an idea, I think, of what he's going to try to do in his mind, and he won't necessarily place things well or all that accurately. he's more focused on the build-up, getting around his man, and I think he has a sense like, okay, I'm going to try to get this ball into the middle. Like, he's not really like an accurate. I don't know. It's almost I'd say it's by design. It's because he's investing so much of his energy into sort of what's going on before that, And I don't know if that's like something that can be switched, if someone can train that. Hopefully that's the case, obviously.
Yeah, I think that's something he could improve on theoretically, and I think with a couple of partners that he's used to, once he gets
exactly that's a big part
used to team, because he used to have a very good rapport with Michy Batshuayi back at Marseille. I think when he has a striker, a partner in crime that he blindly knows he's going to make that run for the first post.
Kaan, are you saying that we should be getting Michy Batshuayi as a? That sounds like a pretty good advocacy right there.
I wish, but that's not within our means, I think. But I think it's important for a guy who doesn't have those amazing crossing abilities of Ricardo Quaresma, or even Janner has a really good crossing ability. And I know people like to hate, and they're like, oh well, they cross 20 times a match and one cross lands, blah blah blah blah. But it's not just about how well you cross it; it's also how good the runs are.
And all like I said, that's kind of a strength in a way, right? You need to be of the mindset where, like, a lot of guys don't want to let go of the ball, right? They don't want to give somebody else an opportunity. So it's not like you could say it's a selfish, way of approaching the match or anything like that. Like I think it has positives and negatives, but there's, as we've seen in the last couple of matches, there's clearly benefits to having a guy like Janner playing out there on the wing. So, I agree with you insofar as it's not like a black or white, like positive, negative.
But the thing is with Rebocho as well is that he got a lot of assists for Guingamp last season too. I think he got 12 assists, and 6 or so of those were from set pieces, but 6 were from open play. So Rebocho is someone who has a good cross in him, but we haven't really seen that yet, because I think with Janner there, he's automatically going to trump that, and he's going to be the one that people are going to look for and give the ball to, and will want him to put it in. But I think Rebocho could. He still has to show it. Is he really a good crosser? We still have to see it with our own eyes, but I think this is a good opportunity for him. And I'm very curious to see who is going to start on the left wing. Is it going to be Jermaine Lens? Is it going to be Diaby? Is it going to be Tyler Boyd? Is it going to be Leitch? I'd be very intrigued with starting Diaby behind Umut Nair again, and then have Leitch start on the left wing. I would be very intrigued by that.
Well, 2 weeks in a row, we've seen Diaby in that role, so it seems, and positive results as well, at least not negative ones. So, it seems like Diaby's found his role, and it's good actually, because I feel like committing to Diaby being in that spot behind a striker is also then committing to having that spot exist, which is a much better spot to be putting Guven Yalchin in as a substitute or whatever than on the wing or as a sole striker. He's clearly not going to cut it in either of those roles. He's shown that much. So that's a positive. And while we're on positives and trends, I think, and also on the topic of Rebocho, I think we've got to say, and I said it, I alluded to it briefly, this is now 2 weeks in a row of Rebocho being very solid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was one of the best men on the pitch, I felt.
Yeah, so it needs to be said. Like, this guy has really put together solid performances 2 weeks in a row. We were all, I think, kind of concerned about the fact that it seemed like it was a struggle to get him into the lineup and get him minutes at first, because Janner is actually, he came into the season playing pretty well, and he's definitely not been, he's had like a couple of bad games where we've called him out, but he's generally been hard to displace for the most part.
I feel like he is always such an easy target, and he's one of the first players that people immediately go after. I think what people forget, like, for example, he got blamed for the second goal Wolves scored. Braga scored. He got blamed for the second goal Braga scored. Well, first and foremost, that was offside.
Yeah.
And second, that was after a sub that we had made, in which I think Nejib went off. And who did we put on for Necip? An offensive player. Might have been Umut Nair. So Rebocho moved to the right side, and we shifted from a 4-3-3 to like a 3-5-2, in which Caner was playing as left wing back and Rebocho was playing as right wing back. So basically, Caner had the entire left wing to go down. So like 100 meters he has to run up and down. And that was like in the 80th minute when he was probably already kind of gassed. And then people are blaming him for a goal that was offside. I just feel like Caner is always going to be one of those guys that people are always going to be pointing to.
Well, so you know what it is too, though? It's because he's older. He's been around the block. He came from a rival. So I feel like when it's like, who's first up? Who's the low-hanging fruit?
It's just that reputation he has of being a bad defender, but I feel like this season he has played a lot of really good games as a left back, as a defender.
I think he just represents low-hanging fruit for our fans. It's like easy because he's on his way out. Ultimately, it's just because he's older and anyway. So I feel like
he's not even that old yet. He's 31.
I know, and that's partially to the longevity of his career is pretty astounding because he's been. He came out of that sort of famous Turkish under-19 squad, right? He was the captain of that team, under-17 squad that won the cup there. He was the captain of that squad. Or Euros, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And
under
so he's really been in the spotlight for like almost 2 decades. So it's pretty astounding. I think it's easy to add a few years on to your perception of how old he is just because of how long he's been around.
I think coming out of last season, we were all kind of considering the chance that maybe that's was it the Achilles injury he had in his second year with us? Maybe that really took something out of him, and maybe that just meant shortened his career. And honestly, with his performance so far this season, I've been very happy because I'm hopeful that he's going to be around for 1 or 2 more years as a backup.
He's that bridge, right? He's bridging.
You need Turks. You need Turkish players.
That's right.
Even if they don't amend the foreigner rule, which
just this week,
which are still
newsflash. That's what I want
which
to
they're
talk about.
still talking about.
Just this week, there was news that who was it that came out and said they were going to try to reduce?
Nihat Özdemir, the president of the Turkish Football Federation, but he can say what he wants. If the clubs don't agree, then it's not going to happen. But we'll have to wait and see. They've been trying to push this for a while, but with the success of the national team, I think that if they really want to make a serious play for this, then it needs to be in a down period. Although, of course, the lack of success of the Turkish teams in Europe might be something that they can use.
Yeah, but how is it going to be better with less talent from abroad? To me, this is how you're wrong. When you have Beşiktaş, Galatasaray, Fenerbahce, Bursaspor, when you have a ton of fans against you who just know you're wrong, because they've seen the product, you should just give up, basically. Because to get those kinds of disparate groups to unite over something means you're done f***ed up. Sorry, I'm gonna have to beat myself, but you're not. You're not gonna win that ultimately because it's just so obvious to me. And what's really insane is you and I are not even that old relative to these jerks in the TFF, but we're old enough to have seen the age where where the Turkish national team was basically the equivalent of the Faroe Islands on the European side of things, where they were getting beaten 7-0, 8-0, when we were kids. So we've seen the evolution of the whole. Oh, so maybe I'm just old enough. I'm about 7 years older than you, so I remember that. So to have reached these heights in just my lifetime, and basically, right, if you put it on a chart, as the restrictions have decreased, the success has increased. It's a perfect graph chart,
And look at the national team, the current Turkish national team. Most of the players in the past, we were always looking for German Turks, and the German Turks were always pivotal in the success of the national team. If you look at this generation of the Turkish national team, most of these guys aren't even Gurbetçi.
Exactly.
Because look at Çağlar Soyuncu, Meri Demiral,
Cengiz Ünder. I mean,
Cengiz Ünder, Yusuf Yazıcı. I mean, all those guys are born in Turkey, and they were afforded the opportunity to go abroad to a top 5 league and develop themselves because there's no more foreign limit. Because
and
now,
you know what I want to quickly do here? I want to tip my cap to Altin Ordu, who set about developing an academy the right way, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, and they've literally come through on their word. The sad thing is that it hasn't resulted in much success on the pitch for them.
Yeah, but I don't think that's their goal as a club.
No, I know, but it'd be good if we had a model of success that all.
Yeah, I know.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I wish that.
So that's the bigger clubs could copy that.
Exactly. I wish it was a model for Beşiktaş, and I don't even want to give that to our rivals. I'd rather they keep stinking in that regard, I guess. But at least for I'd like an Izmir team, for example, to pick up that model. We really need a good Izmir team.
Altin Ordu, an Izmir team.
Yeah, but that's also successful, right? I'm looking at you,
we're getting a little
Giuseppe,
off track here.
Yeah,
Sinan.
way off track. Yeah, sorry. Anyway, let's fully refocus and talk about this match specifically. I'm going to slide into the old format just as a means of sort of figuring out what to talk about. For you, who's your man of the match here? Like, who stood out for you? Because we've talked about how good Robosho was. We've not yet talked about the fact. I'm not going to say Enzo Rocco was a man of the match, but now he's played fairly well for 2 matches. He's at the very least proven he didn't need to be.
He had one slip up, I think, against Feguli that could have cost us.
Yeah, early, right? I missed that. It was early in the match. But at least he's proven he didn't need to be sequestered deep in the bench for the last, by Şenol Güneş.
El Neni and Atiba worked really well together. But this is, of course, against a team, against Galatasaray, that didn't just come to defend. I don't know how that's going to function against a team that's going to park the bus.
Yeah, it's maybe a little too defensive. There's not enough
but here it worked
two.
really well.
It's no doubt.
I think the thing with Atiba El Neni, what it does allow you is that whoever's playing in the attacking midfielder role is afforded a lot more freedom. So I think that El Neni, Atiba, Laiç is definitely something that Avcı needs to put some serious thought into trying, and just letting Laiç loose offensively, maybe give him less defensive duties, let him drop, let him play closer to the striker, more up the field, and maybe that'll get the best out of him, because we need to tap into that quality of Laiç. And that's one of the things that I think that, I don't know if people really...
I guess with both of those defensive midfielders there, it certainly puts an emphasis on the attacking midfielder.
But when he came in, it's not like he did massive stuff, but he did immediately find that ball and set up Caner for the cross. And obviously Caner is the one who gets the assist.
Well,
Sorry,
just before we move to Ljajić's performance and we move away from El Neni and Atiba, I would briefly just like to say that throughout the first 91 episodes of this podcast, I think one of the most recurring and annoying habits of Beşiktaş that we've seen and documented is the ability for guys in the center of our midfield to ghost. And one thing that you're guaranteed with those two guys, like 10,000%, is that there's not gonna be a single ghost in that midfield. The two of them are full
You're not
of
going to
heart.
get a tall guy or a Dorokan or an Oğuzhan.
Or even a little, not even a friendly, a Casper ghost, where they assert themselves here and there, like an Ozan or whatever. No, like these two are everywhere, where they're asserting they want to be in the frame at all times. Like so that was definite. And yes, I think if you can guarantee that in the back of your midfield, and something going on in the front of your midfield vis-a-vis Adem Ljajić, ideally, because we know what he's capable of, I feel like that's kind of the balance you need, even if you don't have a central midfielder, because Ljajic has the definite creative ability to maybe compensate in that regard. As long as you can guarantee that you've got that motor in the back of the midfield that's not letting anything up carelessly.
Vida was good too. Had some really good interceptions, some crucial tackles that prevented Galatasaray from getting dangerous. In the box, around the box, he was really good.
Yeah, I mean, and like it seems like a trend where he starts seasons a little rusty, but sort of slides into them eventually and really settles. He's definitely reached that point of settling.
I think it's so funny how our fans, after a couple, because in the beginning of the season, I don't know what it was last season, and this season he had like that red card against Gaziantep. Last season he had a bad start too, and then you immediately, we should have sold him and blah blah blah. Yeah, and then once the season gets going a little bit and he starts playing well, and then whenever the next transfer period comes, we can't sell him. No.
How could we possibly survive without him?
Oh my God, no, not Vida. He's the last person we should sell. And then as soon as he plays a bad game, it's always, oh my God, I can't believe we didn't sell him. Oh.
I was proud of myself for getting a Vida shirt this year, because it's one of those like under the radar. He is a rock, and like whether you want to give him grief for bad spells, especially, I mean, when it's such a clear trend, like obviously the guy's coming into season a little rusty, which is kind of like the normal human thing to do. Like everyone starts work a little groggily when they come in from a long break, a vacation or whatever. Like it's I don't know, it's somewhat human. So as long as you know what you're going to get for like 90% of the season, I feel like we should just calm down until he shows that he's definitely not going to turn the corner or whatever. But
I really like Vida. He's like, he reminds me of Sivok. And I was a huge fan of Sivok.
For sure, that's a good comp.
So I love Vida. I think he's a great player, and I think people should lay off him a little bit because he's one of our most consistent players.
Yeah. Well, and so the as far as Rocco goes alongside him, I feel like we know that we have a third central defender. Obviously, Ruiz is still our option ahead of him, but it's good to know that maybe like we're not guaranteed to see Necip play whenever one of the other guys isn't available.
Finally, we're getting a little bit of a return on investment on
yeah, exactly, and that's the main thing, right?
You said that, I think, and yeah, because I mean he was a free transfer, but we're still paying him 1.2 a year or something like that, and I just feel like with Channel, which I often felt like with like for example like Kyle Aaron, where, okay, maybe this guy isn't Beşiktaş material, but you should still be able to sell him at a profit if you, let's say you loan him out and he has a good spell. I think a guy like Enzo Rocco is the type of player that when you are out one of your two regular central defenders and you do play this guy and you do allow him to put in a couple of performances. Look, if he let's say he plays 10 more matches this season and he replicates these types of performances, and you still at the end of the season come to the conclusion of, okay, well, he's not really good enough and he's earning too much money. He's not good enough to be a starter. He's too good to be on the bench and he's earning too much to be on the bench. Let's sell this guy. And maybe if he puts in performances like this, like against Braga, like against Galatasaray, then at the end of the season, maybe you're going to get a Trabzonspor who's like, hey, you know what, that Rocco, well, we might take him off your hands and give you a change.
You start to give someone the material to develop a little highlight reel for him, you know what I mean? Like you need, and I think when you get a 25, 26-year-old player who's already playing for his national side on a free transfer, it's almost a requisite that you give him the bare minimum time so that at the very least you can make some money off of that. Because what a thing to luck upon, a guy who's on a decent national side, no less. Chile just won the South American Cup with him on their side. I think
back-to-back
maybe, but nonetheless.
Copa Americas.
So I feel like it's not even a return on investment. It's free money. You're really giving away free money by not trying to maximize that to some extent.
But he's not one of those guys that became victim of not instantly performing great
Yeah, which is a
And-
Chanel
and-
trait. We have.
No, it's not just a Chanel thing. It's like a Turkish thing in general, and a
maybe
Beşiktaş
so.
fandom thing. I think the pressure on players by our fans and the media and all that. If a player doesn't come in and straight away hits the ball at the park, they're immediately written off as not good enough. And I think players may not be the epitome of what you're looking for in a player, but they can still be serviceable. I think Enzo Rocco is an example of a player that can be serviceable, despite maybe not being of the caliber that you aspire to. You know, the caliber of a Domagoj Vida, a Marcelo. Mind you, Marcelo didn't fit that profile either when we initially got him.
Or Tosic. Remember, Tosic struggled.
Yeah,
for a while.
everyone was saying about Marcelo, this guy isn't good enough. He's a laughing stock in Holland. He was a laughing stock in Holland, and he's at the relegation side in the Bundesliga, and this and this.
They did that to Issy Matmerin as well. Who
They
I
did it
never
to
felt
everyone.
earned it.
Issy Matmerin is the same way as Enzo Rocco is a player that could have been perfectly serviceable. I think a player that we could have really used up until now this season with the injuries that we have had. I think Mirin was an okay serviceable player. I'm not saying he was a Marcelo. I'm not saying he's a Vida. He's nowhere near that level, but he was decent, good, physically, good in the air. Okay with the ball at his feet, not great, but okay, serviceable. He's another one of those players that had like one or two poor performances, or maybe not even that bad, but like, for example, the 3-3 against Fenerbahce, which we talked about earlier, there were a couple of players that were picked out, singled out there as the scapegoat, but if you're 3-0 up at halftime and you give it away in the second half, you can't point to 2 or 3 players who are to blame. It's the entire team that collapsed, and that is the fact.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, that's just the thing. We have such a toxic fan and media
outrage. Yeah, no, I know exactly
all of it, and I hope that with the new president now, with Ahmet Nur Çebi, that there's going to be a breath of fresh air through the club, and that people are going to hopefully get a little bit more patient and chill the out a little bit, and yeah. You know, we'll have to wait and see. But I mean, I think that if you look at our squad, and if you don't have all these injuries that we have had this season, I don't think people are really standing still at the fact of how heavily we've been impacted by injuries, because we haven't had any traumatic, and knock on wood we won't, but we haven't had an Abdulkadir Umur being out for 6 months with a meniscus injury. We haven't had that terrible injury blow of a potentially career-threatening injury to one of our key players.
You think that's why people minimize what we have had, kind of?
Yeah, I think people minimize
For
it because
sure.
all the injuries that we are having are small things.
I mean, and the main reason why this is so impactful is because we have so many new guys who are not being given the opportunities to settle into an actual rotation alongside pieces that they're playing with every week in and week out, developing a rapport. And then you're picking on guys and calling them trash because in the one game they do get after 2 weeks out from an injury or whatever, or playing alongside a new guy every other week, you're trashing them because they don't look fluid in that system. I mean, how? I mean, it's almost.
I'm just physically nodding along with everything you're saying, Sinan. I mean, how do you expect Diaby to partner up with Güven or with Umut or with Burak or with all these different players that he's played with in an actual 90-minute match like once? And I think we've seen positive things of Diaby. I think he's one of those players that from the minute he stepped in the club, it's like, what is this? This guy is he a winger? Is he a striker? He's not good enough. And then he missed that opportunity against Ankara and people were
that's the thing. He's
crucifying him.
One moment is going to define unless something happens, right? Like and you can see him being called a failure and being, we got to sell this guy and replace him like ASAP because people are associating him with that one moment, just like with Ismail Mirin with that one half against Fener.
But look how Galatasaray struggled with coping with Diaby. They could not contain him properly. He was a handful for them. And if Umut was,
and imagine Nkudu on the other side, like it could have been.
Yeah, I think the thing with Diaby, what we need to keep in mind as well, Diaby has been played out of position the entire time by Ab. She's constantly being played on the wing. Even like this was the first time where he was in a more central role, and where we immediately, after 30 seconds, we immediately started seeing stuff of what he was capable of.
Yeah.
And I think I just really want to see Diaby get an opportunity as a second striker or even as a lone striker. We haven't even seen that yet. I mean, he doesn't have the physical stature. He's not like a 185, 86, 87 tall or anything like that. He's a relatively small guy, but he's done that before. He used to play as a lone striker for Brugge in his first season, and then he had the second season. He was had a lot of injuries, but in the third season he played as a second striker, which was his best season for Brugge, where he played alongside Wesley. I think Wesley plays for Aston Villa now or something, which is like a target man forward, and that's something that goes really well for Diaby. But I think
and look, Umut Nair scored 2 weeks in a row with someone playing behind him. Diaby, the second match. I think, why not, man? If it's working, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Roll with that again, and fine. If Burak is healthy, then play him as the target man up front with Diaby behind. But again, like it makes Gouven look like less of a jerk, honestly, on the pitch, because like when he comes in, he can everything works better with that with someone playing in that role with this current lineup. And of course, what that means is that we're either bringing Ljajic in as a winger or kind of alternating with that.
Yeah,
second
that's why
striker
like I said, I'm a little
10.
intrigued with Ljajic on the left and Diaby behind the striker. But you know what? This season has kind of been so far. You know when you're making a puzzle, like an actual physical puzzle, and you have like these pieces that seem like they could probably fit, but they don't really fit, and you're kind of like forcing that there, despite it not fitting. But when you force it hard enough, it'll stick together. That's kind of what we've been doing so far this season. And then people start writing off players because they're not functioning properly. And I think, I think that is the perfect way to look at Diaby at the moment. I think he is a quality player. I'm not saying that he's a world beater, but I think he has quality to him. I think he's above average in our league, and I think if you give him the right environment, and he will perform. And I think that's, we said his miss against Ankaragücü, people were getting really harsh on him. It wasn't that easy for him to score that, as you might think. And the thing is, I think he played a good game against Galatasaray. But I think there were also other players that I think Janner at left wing was disappointing, despite giving the assist. I thought Lens was disappointing. Surprisingly, Necip had a decent game.
Yeah, he did.
Necip, no wait, not Necip. What am I saying? Necip came in as a sub and he almost fucked us.
No, that's right. No, you're thinking about.
I was thinking of the Braga game.
Yeah.
And then Gökhan Gönül, I felt like the first half he really struggled with Babel, and our friend Özcan, who's been on the podcast a few times, he felt like he said literally that he felt that Gökhan had him in his pocket, and I think that in the second half Gökhan did a great job at neutralizing Babel until he went off injured. Gökhan did, of course. But in the first half, I really felt like he struggled with him. And Özcan made a really good point in that he did not allow Babel to cut in to look for a shot, but he did still allow him to cross time and time again. And I felt like he was allowed to put in like 3 or 4 semi-dangerous crosses. And
yeah, I agreed with you. I don't think you can call that being in someone's pocket.
No.
When he got, that's kind of his game. That's what he wants to do. He wants to be able to, I mean, maybe Özcan doesn't like his game. That's another story, but
there were a couple of crosses where I really was kind of like squinching my butt cheeks together, where Andone was in the center, and I think Vida was just so dominant, and Vida had Andone in his pockets. That is actually something you can say.
Side note on Galatasaray. Andone seems far more dangerous than Falcao has been.
Well, Falcao has barely played, so... But
true.
I think Andone is a typical hard-working, serviceable striker. I think if we would have had Andone this season instead of Guven, I think we would probably have some more points right now.
Yeah, we'd probably be in like 4th place at least.
Well, you know what? I mean, honestly, I think if we didn't have all these injuries, despite the fact that we still haven't played great football and all that, I think if we didn't have all these injuries from the beginning of the season, I think we would probably near the top of the table right now without even playing really well. But
just because of the form of everyone else, yeah. It's just
I just think that's the amount of injuries we have had and how poorly they have been timed, and I think people really underestimate the impact that has had, and that is also why, I think there's stuff where Avci has definitely at this point deserved criticism for decisions he has made.
Just his subs. My whole thing is just his subs have been kind of
but
whack.
you need to keep in mind he's kind of like a corner dog right now. Or like a wounded animal, a corner wounded animal right now, and those things are gonna do weird stuff because he's been.
You know what, man? I'm gonna go further than you. I'm gonna kind of go further out on a limb here and say, even with the injuries, God, I was gonna say these results are still acceptable. No, they're not acceptable. They're clearly not acceptable, but
they're masked by how
it's like a worst case scenario for a rebuild. But the fact of the matter is, this is a rebuild, and as far as rebuilds go, it's not like a terrible rebuild. We're not. I mean, we could be doing worse, I guess. It was what I mean to say. We clearly have talent, and new talent, and younger talent that's starting to settle. A lot of the pieces we've brought in have shown either flashes of good play or are now starting to consecutively play well in a few matches. Like in the case of El Neni, for example. And I don't know if he's a long-term buy anyway because of his price tag. I really don't quite get that. I'm assuming there's going to be some negotiating done if they have interest in it, but
we'll see. I think it all depends a little bit on the player as well.
Yeah, I see the Kagawa thing. I think it's a Kagawa scenario where, like, if he loves it and presses for the move, they could probably lower the price tag.
Plus, I mean, I think what they are probably kind of hoping for Arsenal are that maybe a Premier League club will be, you know what, he did pretty well in Turkey. But I think that's where also, if we have a under the radar season, that's gonna be advantageous for us in the negotiation position for El Neni if he wants to stay, which he may
wants
not.
to see out like European if we can get in the Champions League.
But that's also another thing, we spoke about the injuries, but also like the suspension for El Neni, missing him for 3 matches.
Yeah,
while
huge.
He was an important part for our midfield and our building up our new midfield. And then of course we also had the Dorkan injury. We finally, Dorkan started to play some really playing really well. I really like him at right back. I prefer him at right back. I'm not a big fan of Dorkan in midfield for us. For the national team, he always plays well in midfield, but it's different, I guess. But for us, I'm not a huge fan of him in midfield. But at right back,
the problem is, I feel like if you're playing with 2 central midfielders, and you need one of them to be right, if your defense is so solid that you can do that, and then you want one of your central midfielders to be more of a ball winner, then you can have a Dorkan. But I don't think we have had the ability to play with 2 central midfielders ever. We've always played Dorkan with another defensive midfielder, which is like doubling up, and then you don't really have a...
Yeah, I find Dorkan a really difficult player to even describe. What is he? I mean, you say ball winner, but I don't really see him as that either.
I think, no, I just mean you need... As a manager, right, you have to play him in the slot as a ball-winning midfielder, and then he's going to do his thing, kind of. But I just mean that you need to not be relying on him in some, like when we're playing him alongside a defensive midfielder, we're kind of relying on his offensive ability, which shows up sometimes. No doubt, we've seen him take those like wild shots from 25 yards out that are perfect, But then we've also seen him kind of ghost in that role a bit. So you can't be relied on for that.
But at right back, I felt like always when he's playing there that he's so solid and reliable, and
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like
He
him
needs
there.
a defined like zone of the pitch, maybe, right? I think he gets that as a right back. Yeah, and whatever it is, it was working, and it was a damn shame that we lost him.
Yeah.
But no, I mean everything you've said. I mean the main factor here is that we've had all of these guys coming in and out of the lineup, which has not helped anyone settle. Considering that we have all these new pieces, especially in those pivotal roles in attack on the
And
wing.
Boyd disappeared again.
Yeah.
Why is he? I thought he was good against Braga. Why was he not featured at all against Galatasaray? I wonder. That's one of those things that I really don't understand. Avcii.
Yeah. It's sort of it's traces of Chanel.
And you're not gonna get an outcry from fans either, because fans are like, oh, he's not good enough. But
Exactly.
what do you
we don't know.
What do you expect when the kid is barely allowed to get consecutive minutes in, because his appearances are sporadic, and how is he supposed to build up confidence and all that when his appearances are this sporadic? I hope tomorrow against Antalya Sport, with Caner being suspended, with Nkudu not being part of the team,
might get to see him
due to injury, I hope Boyd gets another opportunity. I would really like to see either Leitch, but more likely Lens will start on the left, and then just start either Leitch or Diaby behind the striker, and start Boyd on the right. But I think Boyd will be on the bench. Yeah.
It seems like it's guaranteed. Yeah, I mean, what sucks is that the fan base are so blindly, you get certain loud factions of the fan base saying something, and then they all jump on board. And it's like there's not really even any room for anyone to defend Boyd anymore when these conversations start online, for example. Or it kind of feels like it was starting to feel with Karius last season.
Yeah.
Where it was like you can't even defend the guy because it's just coming from all angles.
And where's all
then
those
suddenly,
Karius haters at right now?
Yeah, where you are now. Exactly.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, people jump on him as soon as something, even if something happens where he has no blame. It's the difference between Galatasaray and Beşiktaş is Muslera.
Which is the dumbest thing. So now that we've beaten them, what's the difference?
Yeah, what's the difference now then? What, Falcao?
Exactly. But so there's another topic for that match. Is Karius was solid again. Yep. He's put together a good run of games, and he's starting. One interesting fact is now that things are going kind of well for him, his online presence, his social media presence, is starting to be positive, right? Like he's the one who's like, after a negative performance from some of the team, he'll sort of be like, it's okay, we're gonna get them next time. Like, he seems to be playing more of a vocal role as far as backing the team, being outspoken, supporting things when they're down, but then also kind of getting things going when they're up, which has been only recently applied. But it's good to see. I don't know what it spells as far as like what we're doing at the end of the season. I still think he's too expensive.
I think he made up his own mind already. I don't think he is willing to stay. That's the vibe I'm getting from what he said towards...
About the Liverpool thing, right?
Yeah, I think he's still talking about having another go at Liverpool, and he was also talking about moving on to another team in the Premier League or in the Bundesliga. So I don't think that he sees his future at Beşiktaş. And you know what? I mean, I think if he can have a good season with us now, and I don't mind. I think he was a good 2-year fix for us, an opportunity for him to regain his confidence, which wasn't easy, and which still isn't easy, but he's on the path right now. I think apart from that Slovan Bratislava match this season, and I think he's played in 9 matches, so 1 out of 9 he was poor. He was really bad against Bratislava, but I think in the other 8 or so games that he's played, he was very good. And here against Galatasaray, it's not like he had a lot of work. I don't really know. I think he made I don't know how many saves he made, like 1 or 2, I think. But the thing that I really liked about him is that he, when you needed him to pluck a ball, he was there. without
Exactly, yeah.
hesitation.
He's controlling the
didn't drop
box
it.
more. Yeah,
He was
you feel like
controlling.
he's a real leader of that unit.
Yeah, plus he launched some really good counter-attacking opportunities, which
Yep.
we didn't do all that much with. But his throws were quick and accurate.
He was very engaged.
Yeah, and I
Sure.
think if you have an Nkudu, if you have a full team, a Burak and Nkudu available, where you have more players that are able to exploit those counter-attacking opportunities, if then you throw in Karius being on the top of his game with that distribution, I think you're going to get a couple of goals a season like that if you have a goalkeeper on top of his
It's a
game.
shame, in fact, right? If we were in better form last season, I feel like we could really start seeing that be utilized, and the whole narrative on Karius would be totally different. And then if we could then obviously carry that into this
That's the
season.
thing. He's kind of been dragged down with the ship, and the narrative that they've spun is that he's part of the problem. While I think I think I said this last week, if you make a checklist of 10 things of what are Beşiktaş's biggest problems, he's not even on that list. I think he's one of the last things you look at because he's a solid goalkeeper. I'm not saying that he's world class or anything. I'm not saying that he's as good as Muslera is for Gal. I mean, if you look at things, Muslera for Galatasaray, he's been their MVP for as long as he's been there, pretty much, except for maybe his first season when he wasn't amazing. But look at even this season, how many important saves he has made, there. I mean, I understand when people say, look, the difference between Beşiktaş and Galatasaray is Muslera. I get why they're saying that is because Muslera is that good, but I think that discredits Karius because he hasn't been at fault. The matches Beşiktaş have lost this season in the league, I'm not talking about Europe right now because Bratislava,
that's
obviously, but in the league, Beşiktaş have not dropped points because of Karius.
No.
They
And the thing is that what I feel like has set the narrative is that because Beşiktaş's results haven't been so positive, it's enabled the people who are looking to sort of spin that narrative of Karius as the failure from Liverpool.
So many people looking to do that. I don't know why. I don't know what Karius did. I think Karius must be a dog or something that sleeps with everyone's girlfriend or sister because so many people seem to have.
Especially in Liverpool, he must have really gotten around in Liverpool.
I don't know, but even in Turkey, the Turkish media jump on it too. And
well, I mean, I feel like they're going for those Liverpool clicks, the people who are looking for that bad news, who are starting it all. You know, it's like there's it's like a culture of making fun of him in the media. And it's unfortunate.
It really is. And then I think one of those things is where he has had some really good, I think, for example, against Gaziantep, he had like 3 or 4 100% goal scoring opportunities that he saved. But because we lose 3-2, nobody's talking about that.
Yeah.
Because we lose that match. And that's happened a couple of times this season where he's just played a really good game, but we don't win, so he doesn't get credit.
Yeah.
Even though he had a solid game. And that's one of those things, I don't know why Muslera does get credit even when they don't win. I guess because he's been around for so long, and he does make some amazing saves sometimes.
No doubt.
Muslera.
I mean, I don't want to discredit him. It's just I don't feel like he's a weapon against Karius.
I think that in the modern Turkish football era, I don't know if there's anyone better than Muslera. I think he must be the number one goalkeeper of the modern, like modern, I mean like the last 25, 30 years of Turkish football. Maybe Tafarel, I don't know. But
I mean, look, we can definitely say the best keepers in Turkish footballing history are South American. And it's like Tafarel, Cordoba, obviously Muslera.
Panko.
Who is the other Colombian keeper?
It's a joke, by the way. Mondragon?
Yeah. Mondragon, yeah, exactly. Right? Like, so like there's a culture of South American keepers thriving in Turkey, which is interesting. And Muslera is just the latest in that regard.
Either South Americans or Turkish, with Volkan Rüştü. Exactly. Before that, Engin, I guess. And, But yeah.
There are some big names I'm forgetting from like back in the day. But yeah, anyway, the point being that, Karius has a rep that's been sullied by things that are out of his control. Yeah. But he's played well.
The rest of his career is going to be uphill. He's always going to have to prove people wrong.
Mm-hmm. Good luck to him.
That's just unfortunately Karius' career. I think he's always gonna have to do more than another goalkeeper will have to.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think he's a solid goalkeeper.
Another
if
good
he
performance.
ends up going for, I hope he has a good season with us still, and hopefully we can qualify for Europe next season and set up a team for next season. Hopefully Karius goes on and finds himself a good club if he does end up moving on, and where he can play without getting constantly scrutinized.
And what I don't want is for Beşiktaş fans to turn against him after he leaves, when he does, if he does, because at the end of the day, the more success he has, the better it looks for all of us, right?
How funny would it be if Beşiktaş somehow managed to do this miraculous comeback, win the title, Karius plays an amazing season, and then everyone's like, "Oh no, Karius, come back for the next 5 years," like with Marcelo and
or
with
Fabri even, right?
with
He's the
Fabri
new
and
Fabri.
Mario Gomez, Talisca.
Exactly.
I don't
I
think
almost
that'll
hope it
happen,
happens, just because we've been trumpeting his decency the whole time while people have been trashing him. But anyway, I think we've carried on for a while here. It's late night for you, Kaan, so I don't want to keep you up much longer. But so let's wrap this thing up. Obviously, we've got the Antalya Sport match tomorrow, so this episode will drop probably before right before, but definitely before. Maybe tonight on this side. So maybe not necessarily right before, but for those of you guys who are waking up, it'll be same day. Wrapping up thoughts on this big match against Galatasaray, Kaan. We've talked about how there's a new hope on the horizon. You want to build on that theme?
I think that for now we shouldn't be
too hopeful.
I think that this could be a misleading win. I think this was a match, as we said last week, this is a match between two teams who are in really bad form. And it's gonna be kind of to see who's the shittiest. So I think the next couple of weeks will just have to show us whether we have something to be positive about or not. It's great always to win in a derby, of course, but at the end of the day, if you win against Galatasaray and then you lose or you can't win in Antalya, and then the next 3-4 league games are gonna be just as important. We have to get 10 points or so from our next 4 league games if we want to be anywhere significant this season. If we want to be relevant this season, we have to get 10 or so points from the next potential 12.
Yeah.
And
So
given
good luck.
given our form on the road, that's going to be a very tall order.
Yeah, it's hard to see it as anything else. But so, I mean, look, stay tuned, guys. There is something to be paying attention for now, at the very least. And I mean, personally, I feel like I have enough faith in Abdullah Avci to think that he knows the significance of where he is right now with the club and how precarious his position is, firstly. And secondly, how important these results will be in the coming weeks. So hopefully
there's 8 games left, right? So
yeah, I mean for the
8
games.
Break. How many points is that? That's 24 points. So from the potential 24 points that are still left, I think he needs to get at least 15.
I would even say 18, maybe.
Maybe, but I think
not so realistic. But I think he needs to do well.
15 is probably the bare minimum from the next 8 games for him to salvage his job and for him to be allowed to go into the second half of the season. I think if we get another 12 points, I think that'll not suffice. But it all depends a little bit, how do you do in the
and how everyone else does.
And how does everyone else do? I mean, look, if we get 15 points, we would theoretically be on 27, which is one better than last season's halftime mark. But I mean,
so that means you can't really fire him if that's the case. Well, I hadn't considered that. I mean, whatever. You could. Obviously, again, it's going to depend on the context. It's going to depend on where everyone else is in the league, etc. Yeah, everybody. Antalya Sport, 1 p.m. here in New York City. So I'm thinking that's like 8 p.m. 6 for you. So
It's
in
8 in
Istanbul,
Turkey,
it's
8
p.m.,
in
yeah.
Turkey, but with the changes of the daylight saving times or whatever, the difference now is 2 hours between Central European time and Turkey. So the match is at 8 local time and 6 Central European time, so 5 in the UK. So yeah, let's hope.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
For us here, it's a nice like lunchtime game. So like sometimes the games are on so early you can't even like have a beer with the game because it's like, you know, like 9 a.m. Like it's weird to be drinking at 9 a.m. obviously, but I should be able to enjoy a beer with tomorrow's match, which is a nice welcome thing. Yeah, man, stay tuned, everyone.
And we'll be back next week, Friday, of course,
That's
with
right.
2 games.
Follow us on Twitter. You want to say a word about that, Kaan?
Yeah, just follow us at Beşiktaş_int or at Eagles_podcast. You can follow Sinan at Sir_Rights_a lot. You can follow me at Razarian, RAZZERIAN on Twitter. And that's pretty much it.
Except for one thing, which I, of course, must say. Go Beşiktaş! We're back! Back, baby!
And you know who else is back soon? Rick and Morty!
Hey, man, a lot of things. Star Wars.
Oh, Disney Plus, The Mandalorian is coming.
The Mandalorian, episode 9. We got Fallen Order, man. I think like video game seasons.
Isn't that right?
Beşiktaş International hopes you enjoyed this program.